Welcome to Celtic Stuff Live on the CLNS Media Network, the leading online provider of audio and video coverage for the Boston Celtics. I'm your host, Justin Poulin. Joining me, as always, the great John Duke, who has yet another player from Duke. Wait, does he or does he not?
Don't do that. Oh, no.
Have yet another great player from Duke on this roster. You thought you were adding two. We think you might still be adding two. We know you've got one.
I got one. I mean, it's zero. If you believe the latest reports, I have zero, man. I mean, it's zero, it's one, it's two. Who knows?
The latest report about them wanting to add Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum, dude, fingers flying. Get out of here. Cleveland has turned this into the biggest mess, and all I can say is I get it. I understand. I'm only hoping that a lot of it is posturing. The thing is when it gets out there that they're going to ask for Jaylen Brown or Jayson Tatum, it puts them in a no-win situation with their fan base because there is absolutely no way they're even going to get a solid compromise on that. I honestly believe the Celtics would rather go into this season taking a risk on Isaiah Thomas's hip than to continue to give up or mortgage more of the future or make the Cleveland Cavaliers that much stronger after LeBron's departure. And let's face it, are they really going to get a better deal than the one that they've offered? It's the pick they're after, isn't it, John?
Absolutely. It's all about the pick. It's all about the Nets pick. That's what the beginning, the end, the middle, the everything. It's the Nets pick. We all knew that even going into it, even with Isaiah, thinking we had a fully healthy Isaiah, not even thinking, well, he might be slowed. He hasn't run yet. All the stuff we've heard since, I think the initial trade rumors broke. And now to be in the situation where we are, where the Celtics have, basically said, look, we made the deal. We told you going into this. This is exactly, this is a guy who's slowed. He's got the hip problem. We're not, he's not going to be ready to go from the start. I believe the Celtics were completely upfront and honest and really took everything to the Cavs and said, look, this is everything on the table. This is why we're giving you such a good deal. It's not because, we think Kyrie is, supernova. We think he's great. But let's be honest, we know that IT has got a bad hip. It's going to be a problem. That's why we're willing to throw the Nets pick in. Otherwise, everyone's scratching their head. You go back and listen to all the podcasts that came out immediately after that. People are like, why'd they give up so much and all this? Now, with some of the leaks that have come out, mostly from Celtics folks since that point, everyone's saying, of course they gave that up because that's with the slowed IT, that's why they had to give that much up. And now to come back and say you want Jaylen Brown and I want Jayson Tatum and I want 1986 Larry Bird and I want to have, Bill Russell from 65. I mean, where does it stop? I mean, and it's crazy. It's crazy. And they've got to know, as you said, the Cavs have set themselves up. How can they come back with anything less than that now? They've really set themselves up for failure. And I think that in the end, it's with that, it makes you feel like it's even more likely that maybe this whole thing doesn't happen.
Even if it doesn't happen, how do they bow out of it, John? Is this their way to go back to Kyrie and say, listen, we tried to do a really good – it doesn't matter. No. He already said he's not coming back. He doesn't want to play for the Cavs. Right. They're in just as precarious of a position, and it is odd to be trade partners with the other team that you're battling with for the top of the Eastern Conference. Right. And we all know LeBron has not been shy about leaking it out that he would like to go to LA. We sort of first heard that when Paul George demanded a trade in similar unceremonious fashion as Kyrie Irving. Listen, I really wasn't all that big of a fan of getting Mr. Flat Earth. I'll be honest with you about that. And my initial reactions, oh yeah, he'll never live it down. I'm sorry. I'm gonna back him if this thing gets consummated. But the truth is that drives me nuts. And I know you think he's just playing games, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But every fan who had a bad reaction to the Celtics trading Isaiah Thomas, good for you guys. Not the shirt-burning, jersey-burning freaks. I'm talking about genuine fans like myself who said, wait a second, this guy's the heart and soul. But if you know he's not going to be healthy coming into the season, you know that it's very difficult to sign him next offseason based on perceived value differences that may be there, despite the heroic season that he had.
Oh,
and when I mean heroic, we could go not just captain fourth quarter, but suiting up right after his sister's death, after dental surgery. I mean, listen, you couldn't have asked any more. To light his jersey afire is so disrespectful.
Oh my God.
I can't even stand it. But let's set that aside. I see why the Celtics did this. They just signed Gordon Hayward, who's 27. They want to maximize every year that he's around on that deal, as well as Isaiah Thomas. I mean, as well as Al Horford. And if Isaiah Thomas is not going to be healthy, then you're squandering potentially a year of that. This allows them to get younger. It allows them to save a little bit of money next year. If you figure that they were going to bring out the Brinks truck for Isaiah, at least they get 1 year that's somewhat affordable on Kyrie Irving, and essentially a player who does similar things. And the draft pick is the part that I said, wait, what are we doing? But then when you really consider that the hip has been a concern of mine since really June, we've been talking about this, John.
And we talked a lot about it last week, or last show. You know, we were really trying to figure out, are we going to be able to, you know, what does this mean, and what is the hip really, how does that entail the future of the Celtics going forward? And we talked a little bit about that last time. I think now where we are, Cleveland had to know going into it that they had damaged goods, right? And that's why the pick is even on the table. Now we can argue whether or not they should have had an opportunity to, you know, do the surgery earlier in the summer. Does that make this more palatable for the Cavs? Is it make it a non-starter? I don't know. I'm not sure if IT had allowed them to do the surgery. We had Trags from CLNS Media was actually the first, I think, to say that IT was the one who really stood in the way of doing surgery this summer, wanted to do the rest and rehab bit to try to be able to kind of get back on the floor a little bit quicker. Obviously, that didn't work or hasn't worked, and the Cavs may be holding back about that. It's kind of unfortunate that IT's own decision to pull back may be the reason why the Celtics are in this situation in part. But now here we are, you know, fast forward to all this. I mean, the situation, the opportunity to have Kyrie Irving is just what he can do here. As you said, his fit as a 25-year-old, you know, potential perennial all-NBA guy. He's a USA basketball guy too, which is something we should really mention, because that allows him to be a magnet. And we heard a little bit about this when Kevin Durant was on with Bill Simmons, and he really talked about how all the young guys love Kyrie. And it's not just, you know, the kids. My kid's got his shoes. A lot of kids, his friends have his shoes, but they love his style of play. They love how he's a young leader. He's a young point guard. That doesn't happen with everybody. And we saw this with Rondo. Rondo was the opposite. Rondo pushed people away. Kyrie's a guy who accepts people. And, you know, if you had a Rondo who was accepting people, maybe some of those free agents would have been more looking at the Celtics a little bit sooner. Now the Celtics have a situation where they're a team that maybe people would be attracted to if they can get this Kyrie deal done. And yeah, they don't have cap space and all that, but my argument is, look at the KG deal. Celtics didn't have cap space in that situation, but Kevin Garnett, Freudian slip. Kevin Garnett wanted to where I'm going to go. Kevin Garnett wanted to come here, and he could choose to go anywhere. He could go to Phoenix and LA and all these other places that were interested in him. He wanted to come here, and that's the magnet that you need to have with a guy like Kyrie Irving. And if you know the Celtics are going to be the team that has assets, can continue to have assets, that's a guy you want. And, you know, there's a certain guy that's playing down in New Orleans right now who has maybe a free agent at some point. If you have that magnet there and a guy like Kyrie Irving, that deal is a whole lot easier to get through.
Yeah, and there seems to be potentially some connection with Gordon Hayward. And before we get into that, first, just a reminder to everybody to follow Celtic Stuff Live on Twitter at CSL_tweet live. You can follow me at CSL_Justin. John is at CSL_Duke, and the entire CLNS Media Network at CLNS Media. We also have a Facebook page, facebook.com/CLNS fans, and the mobile app. Download it for Android or iOS, CLNS Media app. Just simply search CLNS Media in your app marketplace, and the YouTube channel where you can now find video of John and I on the YouTube channel here. Celtic Stuff Live is going video. YouTube.com/CLNS Media. High definition, full length locker room interviews, and the Garden Report, which will be starting up again very, very soon. The Celtics Roundtable killing it. And now, obviously, John, you and I have added video. This is our second show that is now going to be live on, or taped, live to tape on YouTube. Yeah. So everybody gets to see what we look like. Unfortunate for that.
Celtics stuff live to tape.
Celtics stuff live to tape. I love it. Yeah. So listen, I don't know if this is a chicken or the egg thing, John, and I want to see what you think, because it seems like Gordon Hayward and Kyrie Irving might have had some mutual respect or have wanted to play together. And that could have been Kyrie just putting floaters out there, talking about Brad Stevens and Gordon Hayward, and maybe just simply suggesting in that way that might be a team he would want to go play for. And then obviously the deal gets talked about without tampering and all of that good stuff. I'm not sure, but it almost seems like maybe Kyrie and Hayward have a little bit of a connection. Maybe they've done off-season workouts. I've really expected that to begin coming out when we get closer to training camp. But once again, only if the deal gets done.
Only if the deal gets done, yeah. And that's the problem with doing a show like ours right now. We're sitting here and we're saying, well, maybe it's this, maybe that. And I'm even nervous that I'm going to jinx this whole thing talking about it right now. I mean, poor Larry, Celtics beat today. This is the one that you all are hearing live to tape. He did a second one with Chris Forsberg, because so much had happened between the time he recorded the first time and the second time. So all of us who are in this live to tape medium of podcasting, we're all like biting our fingernails, hoping that nothing happens in between the time we do this and you listen to it. But the truth is,
it's a good thing we waited to do the show, because we were going to do initially like a reaction right after the deal was supposedly done. And there's been so many layers since then. And, just a little inside look into how we tape. But it's Sunday night. It's going to come out Monday morning. And we're lucky we just barely caught on the Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum news that has come out.
It's nuts, I think, Kevin O'Connor was posting something, I think, to this effect. Was like, look, this isn't what it's going to be. I mean, that's their negotiating ploy. They're going to go far, and then likely they'll get something less. It'll be picks. It'll be this or that. But even to bring up the name, I mean, I got to be honest with you. I mean, this is a first year GM, he's 2 months on the job, if that, at this point. And this is his foray into the job. I'm going to come out and I'm going to deal my second best player. I'm going to do the deal. I'm going to agree to a package of players. I'm going to do, knowing that there's an issue. Then I'm going to turn around and I'm going to say, well, I'm not so sure, and tell the biggest voice in all of sports media about this, and then constantly feed him, feed for Woj, all this stuff about how this is what we want. And, really just, he sounds like he's, basically the Cavs PR guy at this point. And I thought Larry made a great point about that. He's absolutely right. It's, he's not getting the Celtics point of view on this. The Celtics point of view is going other places. And I think what's also interesting is you look at most of the media members, the national media members, most of them said, look, this is kind of what it is. And even Bobby Marks was saying, who obviously was part of the vertical with Woj, and said, look, I mean, they could do something where, if IT plays more than 50 games, it's a first rounder. If it's less or whatever, there's a sliding scale basically.
Really, they could do that attached to the number of games that they win after the trade.
That would be
Bobby
a first,
said. Right? I can see it, but they get so neat with how they do that, and the pick swapping is one that's okay. That's kind of creative, but to literally attach it to wins. I mean, talk about teams tanking for picks, and you think about Philly and trust the process, but then extrapolate that to a deal in a trade, and the way that the picks get executed and sent from one team to another being tied to performance. It's almost like there's a cushion. So Cleveland could say, if that is a real possibility, and this is a Larry Kuhn, Ryan Bernardoni, Eric Pincus kind of a question, but let's say that was feasible, right?
Yep.
Even if it, or let's say it is feasible, if it is, just think about like how crazy it would be if all of a sudden about 2/3 of the way through the season, Isaiah Thomas re-injures his hip. All of a sudden, they know they're going to lose LeBron, right? LeBron doesn't play, and they just go spiraling downward. And at the same time, that helps the Celtics become the team to come out of the East. Like, there's so many levels to that conversation.
And lose levels. We're really talking levels here. No, you're right. And that's how far down through the looking glass we are at this point. You know, we are just so far away from where we were even Tuesday night, where a deal between this, you know, basically folk hero in Boston Celtics and Boston sports lore gets traded for Kyrie Irving, who is the second best player on our probably most hated rival at this point. I mean, 2 hours, that all happened. I'm sitting at work and I'm like, boom, and I'm checking my phone and everything's happening and boom, 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 boom. It's all happening so fast. And it's there, it's done. And now it's all been drawn out. Like, it's like we thought like this was all over and done with and the whole thing. And now we're sitting here just, you know, what, 5 days later, maybe not quite that much, but yeah, about 5 days later, and we're not any further closer to this thing being done. It's nuts. This is a new one. I thought the Gordon Hayward thing was a special level of bizarre, but now we have topped it and then some. I mean,
the Gordon Hayward thing is actually not that bizarre. The way that went down was pretty. It's just modern media. It's the access to guys like Woj, and you know, it's not just the stars and their agents that get information out. It's the family members that leaks out. It's their close friends. Like, it's with TMZ and everything else, it's almost impossible to keep a wrap on anything without literally not telling a soul. You've got to have a pretty close inner circle to pull that off. Mm-hmm. I didn't think the Hayward thing was as big of a deal as people were making it out to be. It was from the fan side. Our experience was, wait, what? He hasn't made a decision? And then it was like, oh, no. But this is actually like legitimately screwed up. That was like, it might be screwed up, but really, I think, and I even said then, I think the guy just wants to command the control over how it gets announced out of respect to Utah, out of respect to his teammates, the best that he could. Now, I guess it didn't really get him very far because everybody else saw through it too. But in this scenario, I keep trying to read into Cleveland's motives, and I keep thinking it's to negotiate more. But I honestly feel like no other team can offer them a package. I mean, even if you just count Crowder and Filler and a pick that is the Nets pick and one of the most valuable drafts. Like, this year's draft was solid, but it wasn't so good at the top. It was solid at the top, meaning it was a very deep draft with a lot of talent, but it wasn't so good that the Celtics held on to the first pick. Instead, they get the guy that they want. They move down. They secure another pick for next year, which is actually what makes the Nets pick movable in a deal like this, regrettably, but it makes it movable. The Nets may not actually be bad this year. That's right. I mean, they'll be bad, but they may not be as bad. But it doesn't matter because this year's draft is like last year's draft, except the depth is loaded with potential franchise star level talent 1 through 4 or 1 through 3 instead of 1 through 3 being, hey, you're going to get a lot of solid players, maybe even 1 through 5, but none of them are a foregone conclusion. With the addition of Marvin Bagley, this has become a draft where I would think that the Cleveland Cavaliers have to realize how valuable that Nets pick really is.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think Bagley is a guy who, when Bagley entered, and we talked a lot about it here, when Bagley entered, the interest and the premium placed on that 2018 Nets pick just went above the line there. And so when we were in a situation, I guess, where you can move that pick, and they want a shot to get a guy like Bagley or Doncic or Michael Porter Jr., it's hard to ignore that. And, you know, maybe the Celtics are looking as, look, we know what we have with Tatum, we know what we have with Brown. To be another year away from trying to build that core, it's a little bit further away than what we want to be from the group that we have right now. I think that's a fair assessment. We also don't know what the Nets are going to do this year. I think a lot of Celtics fans, I think they're probably a 7th, not 8th, 9th pick, not a 1, 2, 3, 4 pick like we've seen in the past. There's a lot of bad teams in the East. The Lakers are going to be bad. I think the Lakers are going to be in that top 5, honestly.
What do you think? This is what I'm thinking. Tell me where your take is on this. I think that what Cleveland really wants to do is they want to say we get the better of those 2 picks if they're transferred next year. So if Lakers don't get number 1, or even if they do, then they get it and go ahead, Celtics, you get Sacktown the year after that. But if both picks are conveyed this season, we want the better of those 2 picks. And I think that's actually what that would be for Cleveland, their best case scenario. Because then they have the same thing the Celtics had up until doing this trade, where they had 2 picks, 2 shots at the highest possible scenario, because ultimately with both of those picks, if one of them is number 1, then the other one is gravy, right? As long as the Nets goes 1, then they're in good shape.
I think it makes sense for them to want that from Cleveland's bargaining point. I just don't know that the Celtics have any reason to do it. That's
I think they sit pat.
And I think I think they stand pat, and then you compare to what else is out there. And we know that the Milwaukee rumor got leaked, which was Middleton, Brogdon, and the Milwaukee number 1. Well, where's the Milwaukee number 1 going to come in? They're going to be at least 20, I would think. They're going to be the top half of the Eastern Conference, or middle of the pack in the Eastern Conference, worst case. So let's say, does any of those really, if you take Middleton, he's a young-ish player. I believe he's the same age as Bradley, but making $17 million a year. So clearly
more valuable than Crowder.
I wouldn't agree with that.
But maybe not because of salary. I will say that's what I mean. Because of the value of Crowder's contract. Yeah, absolutely.
So then you take Brogdon. Well, Zizic, we aren't sure about. We aren't sure about where Zizic fits. Is he going to be a rookie of the year candidate? Probably not. But he probably could be as good as the 18 pick. So then the question is Brogdon or the Nets pick? Which would you rather have? If you would say that you'd rather take Brogdon, I'd say
no way.
Good luck to you, Cavs. See you later, Chief. I mean, there's no way. It doesn't make any sense. So unless there's another deal out there, Miami was a team that was supposedly interested. I don't see what they have to offer. Unless it's Justice Winslow, maybe Justice Winslow.
But isn't that really the game here? The game is that they knew immediately by considering this trade and the fact that medicals had been transferred, that they would essentially be able to set a price for Kyrie and then put it back out there, because they had to think, if they've already reviewed the medical documents, look, guys, there are a lot of avenues for us to veto this. This is an awesome way for us to set the market with the Celtics, see if we can do better. If we can do better, we veto the trade and take that deal. I think they're just buying time at this point. I think the Celtics would be smart to stand pat. And if Cleveland has dug themselves such a deep hole, the Celtics could throw them a couple of second-round picks to sweeten the deal. And quite frankly, with as many young people they have and all the people they're developing and how easy it is for them to pick up somebody like Theus and just stash them down there or bring them up to the roster, there's really no reason for them to be too worried about all those second-round picks. They could easily convey those and make that the closer for the deal. I agree. They sit still.
They do sit still. And I think, whether they wait, the Celtics may wait long enough to really drag it out and say, we're going to think about it. We're hemming and hawing over this. I don't think that they're going to give them anything of any size. Like you said, 2 second-rounders. The deal, and Sean Grandy, good friend of the show, brought this up. When the Celtics did the deal with the Oklahoma City Thunder to send out Perk and get back Jeff Green, there was an issue because of the heart ailment that ultimately sidelined Jeff Green for the remainder of the following season, and the Celtics actually ended up getting an additional second-round pick from the NBA from Oklahoma City, because Oklahoma City didn't disclose all of their records. Now, a team some argue, well, the Celtics should have, maybe they didn't disclose everything. A team that went through that process 5 years ago with the same exact leadership in place, they don't make that mistake twice. Or I should say, they know enough.
Surprises.
What's that?
They don't want any surprises.
Exactly.
They wouldn't take that chance.
They can't take it at this point, right?
No, absolutely not.
And there's no way that they made a mistake.
Not a chance in hell. All right, listen, we're going to go take a quick break. And first, I'm going to tell you about FanDuel. But before I do, let's just set the table. When we come back, I got an axe to grind with Ray Allen. So we're going to hit that. And then also, I wanted to ask you, Jon, and we'll do it coming out of the break, but which pick is more valuable, right? That's my question. Is the Lakers pick more valuable, or is that Nets pick more valuable? The Lakers pick, obviously, if it goes number one, becomes Sacramento, which should still be a very decent pick the following year. But I think everybody is in love with this draft. So we'll set the table that way. But now I am going to tell you about FanDuel. Fantasy football fans, the wait is nearly over. Football is back, which means FanDuel is back with fantasy football for everyday fans. New contests begin every week. No busted seasons, with something for everyone and lots of contests to choose from. Starting at just $1, you simply pick a contest, choose your team, and watch your score in real time. I had a great time last year with FanDuel. We had a listener league all set up. We're going to give you details on that very next week, but it's just a great time. Plus, with all of the comments in our chat rooms and on Twitter and everything else, we all love to break each other's balls a little bit. And I think the listener league is going to be great for that. And it's CLNS Media Network wide. So we're going to have a ton of fun with that. I will tell you, over 2.5 million players have won a cash prize playing fantasy sports on FanDuel. So sign up today. Go to FanDuel.com, click the Join Now button, and use our code CSL or CSL17. You can try FanDuel for free with no deposit required. Visit FanDuel.com to claim your free contest and play for a share of $10,000. Just sign up using promo code CSL17. That's FanDuel.com, promo code CSL17, void where prohibited. All right, Jon, so right before the break, I asked you, which pick is more valuable to you? Is it the Nets pick, or is it this Lakers pick that, if it becomes number one, gets waylaid for another year, and then we get to see the pick from the Sacramento Kings?
I think you've got to say the Lakers pick, actually. I think that the Nets right now, they've got a young team. They have, once again, they have nothing to lose in getting better. But the difference this year is the Nets have a number of teams who are actively going to be trying to get Marvin Bagley and Porter and Doncic in, and that's, I think, a pressure that the Lakers don't have on their end. The Lakers, they've lost their pick. They similarly have no incentive to do well, but in fact they actually have an incentive somewhat to do worse, because what they need to do is they need to shed salary. So it's kind of interesting, because at this point, if I'm the Lakers, I'm trying to get worse, try to be worse, but I need to be good enough so that I'm attractive to LeBron James coming into it. The Nets, they've added D'Angelo Russell. They've got DeMar Carroll as a veteran leader, and darn it, they're a spunky group. And finally,
and they have no reason to lose. They have no reason to lose. Think about this. The Lakers still have incentive to lose, because it could mean that they go number one overall. And if they do, then they get their choice. So even though that pick is likely to move on, they still have a pretty good reason to lose. The Nets have nothing to lose.
That's right. And if the Nets benefit is to try to get to that next step where they're back into playoff contention. They know they're going to have a good pick next year. They're going to be back in the running. D'Angelo Russell's trying to rehabilitate a terrible image that he built in LA. I think he's got almost, I'm not going to say it's on IT being spurned from the Celtics levels, but he has a lot left to prove to this league and to the Los Angeles Lakers. The shade thrown at him from Irvin Magic Johnson is just enormous. So they've got all the reason in the world to try to get get after it. Jeremy Lin looked, and that team looked real good when Jeremy Lin was healthy. I think Kenny Atkinson's a really good coach, and they're trying to build and do the same things the Celtics did in 2014, trying to build from the bottom, get some spunk, get some energy, some spirit, and use that to try to push you over the edge. And I think it's going to work in an Eastern Conference. It's going to be a lot bad, worse than it has been. I mean, Atlanta, again, Indiana, Chicago.
The Bulls are going to be miserable.
It's a terrible conference. So you got three teams right there. They're actively trying to be worse than the Nets. If you look at the West, the Lakers, okay, we got their situation, but Phoenix is trying to get better. I just don't see that the Lakers are going to be in that Western Conference all that much better than they have been. And that West is so much tougher than it has been in the past. There's legitimately 12 good teams or 10 good teams at the very least that could be playoff teams. There's no way that Lakers team is going to be any good. So as long as it doesn't go number one, the Celtics, I think, are going to get that Lakers pick. And then the fun begins.
Then the fun begins. Yeah. So, again, that's where I'm thinking maybe even Cleveland has taken a look at this deal and said, wait a second, maybe that Lakers pick is more valuable. Maybe we want to make sure that we get the better of those two, or maybe the negotiations got as far as they could go. And Cleveland thought, we might be able to string a little bit more out of this, and figured that Celtics would have a little bit more to give, knowing. And this is really before we talk about Ray Allen, or maybe we use this to lead in to the Ray Allen conversation. But truthfully, Cleveland's whole game plan on voiding this, or the threat of voiding it and getting more value, is the fact that how can the Celtics take a dispirited and disgruntled Isaiah Thomas back on the roster, a Jay Crowder who was already going to be unhappy because, just think, how can Jay Crowder and Gordon Hayward be friends? How can they be on the same team, right? Just look at Jay's reaction to all of that. And I'm not trying to create drama where it isn't, but come on. You know what I mean? If your work fires you and then calls you 2 weeks later and says, hey, remember that whole thing? We need you. It's all good. Come on back. Come on back.
Come on back, baby.
Home. Come back home.
Baby.
Right. No,
come
man.
Back to me, baby. Please, come back to me.
Dude, it's gonna be. I think it is gonna be bad. And the people that are saying, and here's my counterpoint: the people who are saying, "Oh no, it won't be a big deal. They're all professionals. They'll handle it fine." Brad Stevens. Listen, I love Brad Stevens. That is a precarious position. It is not one that the Celtics want to find themselves in come training camp by any stretch of the imagination. However, I don't think the odds were good that Isaiah Thomas was going to get re-signed. Regardless of the injuries, I think he probably was going to go out there, unless the market dictated a non-max contract, then maybe. But I think the Celtics kind of knew that this thing might not get where they want it to, and thus getting younger, another year on the deal, yada, yada. But Jay Crowder wasn't going to be happy. His defense hasn't been as good as it was 3 years ago. The last 2 seasons, it's been off and on. Those high ankle sprains set him back. Now, is he still a great 3-and-D player? Is he still huge value on his contract? Can he go to Cleveland and all of a sudden, be dominant again? Yeah, and he could be on the Celtics roster, but I don't think he was going to be really happy here, especially because Gordon Hayward's kind of got his spot at the 3. Could they run small lineups? Could they do some things? Absolutely, and they would. But I could see the Celtics making a lesser trade in that vein if Cleveland does void it. And I really don't think that the Celtics are going to be handcuffed, because I think the future is on the roster now. It's Hayward. I think they want to keep Smart. I think they want to obviously keep Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. So they'll just work something else. They've still got all those picks. Other teams will see that, criticisms about them not being willing to give out value like Terry Rozier hasn't been the deal breaker that people think it is. This deal is an overpaying deal. And every time one of those trades didn't go through, all we ever heard was that Danny didn't really want a deal. They overvalued their assets. I can't imagine how anybody could look at this one and say that the Celtics overvalued their assets.
No, I don't think so. I think, if anything, the argument going into it was that the Celtics are, in the immediate aftermath, of the deal. I think they made that the feeling was they undervalued their assets. They gave up too much to get a guy like Kyrie Irving. I think this shows the Celtics are willing to deal in the right situation. And there were reasons why 28-year-old Jimmy Butler was not the right expenditure of money, of assets. I shouldn't say of money, of assets. I think they did try to get Paul George, but that was cut out from underneath them. That wasn't the Celtics kind of taking them. They get taken out of that before they even were part of it. So there's a lot that I think were part of those pieces, and they were willing to spend. I think the deal is still going to go through. I think it's going to happen. I think it's there, as you said, there may be some minor picks that go through, but I think that the lesson here is that it's a two-way street, and you can't just dictate. You may have the best deal in the world. I think that's the one thing especially from the Indiana deal, but that's the one thing I think people should be taking from it. Just because and the GM doesn't do the deal doesn't mean that it takes two to tango. Kevin Pritchard screwed up his situation with the Pacers because he was unwilling to wait for Danny Ainge and others. He didn't want to keep Paul George in the conference. Well, by doing that, he didn't get a Nets pick. Whereas Cleveland, who is a direct rival to Boston Celtics right now, direct rival, 1-2 in the East, depending upon how this trade goes. And they were willing to do the deal. They actually showed some courage in this. Now, they're abdicating all that courage by taking the situation. This new GM.
And look at Slimy.
Oh, this new GM, right? This is the guy. This is the way he's coming onto the scene, is to say, "Hi, I'm Kobe Altman. Nice to meet you. I'm the new GM here. Yeah, I'm gonna renege on my deal, basically." I mean, to me, that's something that a lot of other GMs are going to take note of across this league. It's going to be harder for him to rebuild if he doesn't honor that. Ainge doesn't have the coaching tree or the GM tree that places like San Antonio and others have, but he has friends in other locales. He has his acolytes. He has Daryl Morey and others who Brian McDonough. He has people who know him across the league. If they renege on him, and it's looked across league in all circles, and I think the media in their reaction to this has been Celtics shouldn't give anything up. They are a very minor asset at most.
Not even just local
media.
There's
no way that the Cleveland Cavaliers come out of this looking good, and Kobe Altman looks terrible if they come out and they try to renege and void this deal.
So you're absolutely right. And it's not even just local media who says don't give more. Everybody. This is a national media thing. So all of this, beating up on Celtics fans, Homer bias and all that. This one is actually legit across the national media scene, that this is a good deal for Cleveland. They should take it. They're likely going to blow up next year. Quite frankly, they should trade LeBron and try to get an asset or two for him. And they really should, because they're in a tough spot. And Kevin Love too. I mean, honestly. But it only has to be set up right. Nobody's going to take that after they went to the finals again last year. That's what makes it such a tenuous situation for them. But you're 100%. There's no reason why they shouldn't do the deal. And there's no reason Cleveland won't look bad and Kobe Altman won't look bad. But you know who looks really bad is Isaiah Thomas.
Yeah.
And this is like an unintended casualty of the situation. A man, like, again, we could do 3 shows, and even Steve Volpett made a point of saying nobody could have ever asked for more or said that he should have given more than he gave to this team. And here's my thing. If this thing does get awkward, whatever Cleveland sees in the medicals, is that going to get leaked, like what they think they're concerned about? Because now the Celtics can't do anything to make it right. At least I don't think so. I think trying to heal that relationship is going to be a lot more difficult than Isaiah Thomas trying to heal his hip and mend that. And so with that also in mind, he goes into the next offseason with this major, major medical scrutiny surrounding his hip that is totally going to destroy his Brinks truck opportunity unless he lights the world on fire with one of these teams by the time the All-Star break rolls around and to finish out the year. And even then, there's going to be question marks, man.
Exactly.
And he should have had surgery. And I have a very hard time criticizing the man, because I am indebted. And when I first saw that trade, I barfed a lot in my mouth, not a little.
You did. I think you said barf. I think that was your tweet. Was it barf or
it was barf, barf, barf. It was a triple barf because it wasn't a little barf. It was a lot of barf in my
all
mouth.
All the barf at you. Yeah.
I was like, I was, it was Spaceballs. I was barf. I was. It was just ridiculous, dude. And I was not happy. I'm just going to say I was not happy. I was, and I barfed a lot. But I think it's a really unfortunate situation for Isaiah, but he should have got the surgery. And I said the same thing about Kelly Olynyk. The more he waited, I was like, you need to just get on it. I understand. Nobody wants to have surgery. I respect that. But maybe this trade doesn't get done if Isaiah had the surgery too. And I don't know what happened, and I don't know what kind of conversations went down behind the scenes and whatnot. But the Celtics have only so many years to make this little run with Hayward and build to where they want to go. And they want to maximize every single year. And if Isaiah had that surgery, and that's where the real question mark comes. It's not like Cleveland didn't have this information, but where they're really kind of nitpicking it and poking holes at it is the fact that they would have felt a little bit more certainty about the rehab if he had the surgery. But you know what? So would have the Celtics. And maybe when they make that statistical comparison between the two players, they decide that draft pick isn't worth giving up. And even when Brad Stevens was asked just a week before this trade, or maybe just days before this trade, about how it was coming along and how confident they felt, you could hear him hedging. Obviously, he knew the deal was potentially in the works too, but he had to have his concerns.
Absolutely. Yeah, you'd have to have your concerns about a situation like this. And I think we all did. And though, there were different phases of confidence and words given by Danny and by Isaiah. Yeah, I'm doing well. Things are looking good. Things are At no point did we hear he's not running yet. He's not really working out. Things aren't progressing very well. I mean, they were very close to the vest about this. And I think the Celtics honestly were protecting Isaiah. That's what's kind of sad about this, is that they were really, I don't think that they were doing this for his trade value. I think they were doing this honestly to protect Isaiah and Isaiah's value in a way. Not that they want to pay more for Isaiah, but I think they thought they'd be doing him dirty if they went ahead and, started airing stuff in public and saying, well, he's not quite running yet. We're hoping we'll have a good, that type of thing, where there's just no way out of that. Now, of course, the horse is so far out of the barn. It's crazy. It's, as you said, it's unfortunate that the one who probably gets hurt out of this most is Isaiah Thomas, because of all he's done for the Celtics, all he's done for the city. And that's the ultimate shame in all of this to me, is that no matter what happens with the deal, it's unfortunate that not only his livelihood, his character, everything has been assassinated and under attack for the last 5 days, and it's just so unfortunate because of all he's done here. It's I think the Chris Broussard stuff about saying teammates were glad he was gone. I'm like, what the heck is that? And kudos to Jared Weiss.
That's just going after us, dude.
I want to give Weiss did a great job though in reaching out to Evan Turner, getting some good stuff. Other guys pushed back. It's crazy, and I think Isaiah should know that this franchise, this city, you, me, all these fans, that there are heights in which the love and passion. My kid. My kid's friends, all of them are kind of like, yeah, Kyrie's great, but man, it's so sad. I was just talking to one of them today. It's so sad to see Isaiah go. There was just a connection there that doesn't happen. A lot of people love Paul Pierce. A lot of people love, Larry Bird. I got my starting lineup here, Larry Bird right here. Loved those guys, that passion, but there was such a connection with what that guy did here. And it's such a shame.
He's the underdog. He's the underdog. There is no bigger underdog. And here's the thing. I said this on a brand new podcast, kind of a fledgling podcast that's trying to get off the ground, and I'm all about helping out because we were there once and maybe we're still here. Who knows? But either way, I said on that show, I was like, he embodied everything that what being a Boston or New England sports fan was 15 years ago. 15 years ago, we were losers every year, year in, year out. Tom Brady, last pick of the 6th round, blah, blah, blah. And he was all of those stories for the Celtics in a way that nobody could have ever predicted, in a way that maybe nobody else can replicate. It's one thing to be it's one thing to be picked at the end of the NFL draft. It's another thing to be picked at the end of the NBA draft. When you're the last pick in the NBA draft, you are not likely to make a team, and you're hoping that you can make a decent payday overseas by showcasing yourself a little bit in the early goings with the NBA. That's really how this goes down. The fact that he climbed to where he did, and so many of us are just so sick of being the Yankees now. I mean, anybody who grew up, anybody who grew up like when we did, right? It's like I live in Pennsylvania now. Everybody in the world hates the Patriots the way that we used to hate the Yankees. And yet, here's this team who traded away their stars, was at the bottom of the barrel, and the man who lifted them up was reportedly 5'9" and is actually 5'6", 5'5", and puts the team on his back and plays in ways that you could never imagine, and carries them back to the top of the Eastern Conference in 2.5 seasons. That is a phenomenal story. Remember that one video where he stops in the middle of Boston, gets out and goes and plays basketball with that kid on the hoop? Not a drive-by dunking. No, hey, man, I'm Isaiah. Let's just play some ball, right? Like, just on a whim. He endeared himself to this region, and that's why, barf, 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 dude, I was not happy about it. Plus, I haven't been the biggest Kyrie fan, right? And I'll adjust, and I'll get on the bus if this deal gets done and whatnot. But it is a travesty what happened to Isaiah. His character should not be in question whatsoever. And, I hope he does get his Brinks truck. I hope all of it works out for him. He's had an extremely tough year. And I understand it's business, right? But I am going to say that if anybody but Ray Allen had made the point, and actually somebody did make it, somebody did make the point before Ray Allen, Caron Butler made the point, and Caron is right. And if anybody else had made the point other than bitter Ray, let me have a drink of my Ray Allen Pepsi. Oh, that's bitter. This guy is ridiculous. He just jumped on that. Like, he saw Caron Butler and he's like, oh, there's my train. Wait for me. Yeah. Ran right down and just had to throw it. Listen, here's the first thing. It's not like it's not like he took less money to go play with Cleveland. It's not like we traded him and paid him less money. No, dude, you didn't talk to anybody. At least Danny had the nuts to go up and tell Isaiah and go and talk to Crowder. At least he talked to them. You disappeared without a conversation, and not even just with the front office. That's fine. You want to tell me it's a business and they were businessmen and they lost the deal? That's fine. But what about your former teammates? What about the guys that seriously have absolutely said unequivocally you let them down with the way you handled it? Not that you made the choice, but how you handled it. And now you run around like some little baby just whining every chance you get about how you're criticized. You deserve the criticism because of who you are. And I know I've been off on this soapbox before 1,000 times, but the fact that he just completely bogarted Isaiah Thomas's misery to go out and go, look at me again, I'm so bitter.
That's a good point.
It infuriates me.
Yeah, that's a good point. You're right. It is kind of like the politicians that always run behind the thoughts and prayers thing when they really don't care about it. So whatever the issue is at the moment, but they just want to be part of the wave piling on. Absolutely. And so you have this situation with Ray, who's like, see, the Celtics fans, they're on. It's like, you know what, Ray, I got to tell you, bud, like, honestly, I was starting to thaw a little bit. Even though the 10 years, I'm like, it's 10 years. It's time to get over it. It's time to move on. It's time for all of us to just kind of let it go. But then he goes and does that again. There you go again, Ray Allen. There you go again. Shut your mouth. shut your mouth. Like, honestly, dude, I get it. Like, you feel like you should be able to make a choice. And I agree that you should go to the highest bidder. But you didn't go to the highest bidder. You went to the lower bidder, who was the team who all your boys were trying to beat. And then you like are trying to sit there and say, well, they should understand. What? No, man. No, if you
They
had
should
went there for more
understand
money,
if you gave
that
them
would
an
have been a
opportunity to
difference.
talk to you. Absolutely. He
Exactly.
didn't give
Pick
them
up
an
the
opportunity.
phone.
Exactly. He didn't
You could
give
just
them
pick
an
up the phone.
opportunity to understand because he didn't talk to them.
That's right. Ever. Even when he was on the team or afterwards, he wouldn't pick up the phone and say, hey, listen, hey, Ray, hey, Paul, listen, I'm going. KG, I'm out of here. I tried, and yeah, I feel like they're going to move me if I do. I think that's a conversation they could have had, but it didn't happen. And so now he's latching himself onto this whole situation, and it's crazy because last week, the week after we did our last show, that's when the Paul Pierce announcement that he's going to be retiring his jersey at the Cavs game. I thought,
That's
that
so insane, dude. The fact that the
well,
home opener and the retirement of Paul Pierce's jersey is happening in
I
the
know,
midst of all of this mess.
yeah,
I hope Paul gets his due and this drama doesn't wind up taking away from that night.
yeah. But my thought was that, well, when they do this, by the time we're far enough down the road in February, that's enough time for everyone to kind of settle down. Maybe things get worked out. Maybe that's the time that the Celtics are able to come back, and then dumbass Ray Allen just pouring salt in that wound, picking that scab open, opening it up, like, yeah, let's get this going again. People want this to go away. I mean, I think Celtics sure as hell want to make this go away. They want their big three back together. They're over it largely. And I think Danny wants it gone. I think Paul talked about wanting it gone. KG, I think, is still on the fence. We know Rondo is a different story. And yet he just does it again. It's just, I don't understand. That was for a guy who's supposedly so savvy with the media and ran to Woj every time he could to kind of badmouth the Celtics. It's kind of surprising he wasn't smarter with the media on this one. And I also want to say, I think it's not surprising that all this stuff that Woj is bringing from the Cavs, he doesn't get anything from the Celtics anymore. And I wonder if the Celtics have something against Woj for that because of the way that he was kind of, with the way that Ray was running up the back stairs to talk to Woj and give him stories. I don't know, just a thought, but
Yeah,
it seems there's something there.
There definitely could be something there. And, I just think the way that Ray has handled the situation is just miserable. And Area 21, that's what this was, right?
Mm-hmm.
His whole gang finally went out and they all went on TV and talked about it. Even Big Baby probably got a little big for his britches, like acting like he was in the middle of it all. Because that was my only thought when I watched it. I was like, baby, come on, man.
It was the
KG
best part
made
was,
you cry.
well, he did. And the part when he was talking smack about Doc, and then they bring Doc on. That was that was great. That was great.
Classic. And Doc gave him another chance too before he fell out of the league, right?
Well,
so it's just so Big Baby is another piece of work of his own.
Yeah.
He should probably be on TV, or maybe that's what he was trying to do that evening on KG's show. But on TNT, I just feel like Ray was just waiting for an opportunity to fire a shot back, and this one was against the organization instead of his former teammates, instead of more direct. But he was just waiting on it. He had to return fire.
Yeah. Yep. And it was the dumbest thing he could have done. So, I think it's too bad, but I think what we have, you kind of move past it, and you end up with, you hope that they end up with a guy like with Kyrie Irving, and you look at the team that they have, and it's kind of interesting because a lot of talk in that press conference, or the whatever was the little media availability that we had on CLS Media, and Danny kept talking about one who's 25 years old and kept talking about how he fits our timeline. And I think that's a really interesting thought as we kind of go into this, assuming this deal happens. We've talked about being on two different tracks, and Kyrie allows them to kind of move back closer to the younger guys, but he's still able to work on both tracks as a star player. There's one guy who doesn't, though. I mean, and you could argue that really Hayward is,
absolutely,
but Horford is not, and it does make you wonder, what is the future of Al Horford here? I don't know.
It also sounded like that Danny was leaving the door open for another deal. Yes. So this is probably a thorn in their side, because whatever that other potential deal may be, maybe at a small one or whatever, they still have loads of draft assets, but not loads of salary.
No. Right.
But there could be another deal in the works, and this one has to fall first. Who knows? You're right. Horford's not on that timeline. Hayward is, but it's almost like there are 3 timelines separated by 3 years / 4 years apiece, right?
And to take the Spaceballs reference, when will now be then? And the answer, soon.
Did you say soon?
Soon. Yeah, that's the line.
That's so great. I can't believe
when will then be now? That's right. Soon. This whole week has been ludicrous speed.
It's been Spaceballs. It's ludicrous speed, but no, we've hit plaid. We've
hit plaid.
We've laid down 3 different Spaceball references in the show, and as we wrap it up, I just have to say that nobody else can claim that. In the last 24 months, nobody can claim 3 Spaceball references in a NBA podcast. So we dare you. We challenge you all.
Come on, Larry. Come on, Celtics Roundtable. Come on, Banner
for
podcast.
All of you kids, and for all of you kids buying Kyrie Irving shoes, go watch the movie, because you have no idea what we're talking about.
No. I'm not really ready yet to show my kids the entire movie, but we're getting close. So
it's on the inappropriate line. There's no doubt.
It is.
But all right, this broadcast will be available on demand on the CLNS Media mobile app, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter at @CSL_Justin and at @CSL_Duke. A heartfelt thank you to everybody for tuning in, and remember that you can support the show by subscribing to iTunes, subscribing to Celtic Stuff Live on iTunes and Stitcher. We'd love it if you gave us a rating and a review, because your feedback is important to the show. A quick reminder that today's show brought to you by FanDuel. They have a great deal for all of you listeners, but most importantly, you would be supporting our show and the entire CLNS Media Network. For staff writer Samuel Elias, executive producer Larry H. Russell, the founder of CLNS Media, Nick Gelso, and for my co-host John Duke, I'm Justin Poulin. Thank you for listening to this week's edition of Celtic Stuff Live.